Welcome to the Nursing Post podcast, All Nursing All the Time with Ashley Moore and Rosa Horsley. Today we discuss the topic of hunger here in the United States. Our goal is always to inform and to help start conversation.
A lot of us are fortunate enough to open our refrigerator or our freezer door and see a variety of unspoiled or unrotten food. Unfortunately, there are too many people in America, let alone the world, who cannot say or experience the same thing. We know that hunger is prevalent worldwide. Some may even expect that in a third world country. The issue we're discussing today is the fact that America, the United States, is not a third world country, but has hunger and food insecurity spread through its own back door.
According to Feeding America, No Kid Hungry, and DoSomething.org, in 2017, 40 million people struggled with hunger in the United States. The USDA defines food insecurities as a lack of access at times to enough food for all household members. And in 2017, an estimated 15 million households were food insecure. In America, hunger is caused by poverty and financial resources at both the national and local levels. 45 million Americans rely on stipends from Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Programs, or SNAP, to buy food each month, according to the USDA. 2/3 of these benefits go to households with children. 1 in 6 American children may not know where their next meal is coming from. 22 million children in America rely on the free or reduced price lunch they receive at schools, but as many as 3 million children still aren't getting the breakfast that they need. Children who experience food insecurities are at higher risk for developing asthma, struggling with anxiety or depression, and performing poorly in schools or in physical activities. 15% of families living in rural areas experience food insecurities compared to 11.8% living in suburban or metropolitan areas. People of color are disproportionately affected by higher risk of hunger at 22.5% of Black households. 18.5% of Latinx or Hispanic households experience food insecurity in 2018. These 8 states have the highest rates of food insecurities in the United States. Mississippi at 18.7, Louisiana at 18.3, Alabama at 18.1, New Mexico at 17.6, Arkansas at 17.5, Kentucky at 17.3, Maine at 16.4, and Oklahoma at 15.2%. In 2017, households with children had a substantially higher rate of food insecurities, 15.7%, than those without children at 10.1%.
Literally listening to that made me want to cry.
Mm-hmm. It's awful. And, it hits a different nerve when you talk about children being hungry versus adults. I mean, I don't want anybody to be hungry.
Starve. Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. Like, it strikes a nerve differently when it's children, because as nurses, we know nutrition is important, period. It's important for overall health, for healing, definitely wound healing, proteins needed. We all know this as nurses, but we also know that without certain nutrition, that children will suffer developmentally. The reason why I wanted to do this particular episode was from what's come out of the pandemic of 2020.
Right. Well, and I think that, yes, the pandemic is awful, was awful, whatever your beliefs are on the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
this has existed before then.
Oh,
I'm not, don't get me twisted. Like, I know hunger and poverty existed before the pandemic. However, I feel that the pandemic has taken it 18 notches to the wrong side. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the pandemic has shined a light on a lot of things that needed a light shined on. And
Amen.
I think that that's going to be the silver lining of the pandemic.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular episode. But the other reason I wanted to do this particular episode is because, one of our goals for 2021 is to partner up with Feeding America, and we'll discuss that a little further along, because we have to do something about it. It's just unfathomable to me to think here in the United States, one of the most richest countries in the world, that we have such high numbers of starving people, starving children.
We throw away so much food that there should be nobody hungry in the United States.
So I asked myself, how can and is this happening in America?
Right.
And the more I looked up, there were a lot of reasons, even some that I didn't really realize, or if I realized, maybe I didn't think about it as much. We all know poverty is a big reason. 2.3% of all U.S. households, including what economists call the working poor, who earn about $25,000 a year for a family of 4. $25,000 a year hardly ever supports a person of 1, let alone a family of 4. In the United States, families with very low incomes run out of money before or at the end of the month. Well, this is true.
Oh, yeah.
We all live, most of us live on a budget. If you didn't live on a budget before 2020, I'm sure we're all, have had to adjust.
In some way.
Some way. Some families have had to cut back on how much they eat. Parents have even had to skip meals. And unfortunately, children have had to skip meals, and some have had to skip all meals on some days.
It's really important here. And I know that we're going to talk about this later, but it's really important to know what resources are available to you. Because if you're a family of 4 making $25,000 a year, there's a lot of assistance that you qualify for to cut down on other bills to help supplement food. So it's really going to be about not being ashamed to ask for help and finding out what's out there for you.
Absolutely. I agree with that. The other reasons include job instability. Hunger is mainly caused by poverty. We've already discussed that. But the results from that are lack of jobs or jobs that pay too little. So I'm only going to go on my little political soapbox for 2 seconds. I promise, Ashley. I promise. So yes, during the Trump administration, employment rates up until the pandemic improved. What they do not tell you is those jobs that were filled weren't jobs that supported families. Sometimes those jobs that were reported were those people working at fast food restaurants, working in retail, below the poverty level. So yes, unemployment went down during that time, but people were still not being able to live, pay rent, and feed their children. Rates rise when the national or local economy is in a slump. We all know this. We've been through several recessions. The Great Depression, the pandemic of 2020 has also caused this. People who have been in prison face more discrimination, making it so difficult for them to find employment opportunities once they're released into their communities.
Yes, it does.
They serve their time, they paid their dues, and yet they still every day are paying the cost of a mistake they made. Single parent families, sometimes that parent may need to take a second job to help support that family, but they can't because they can't afford childcare.
Right. Which is, again, why it's really important to know what assistance is out there, because there is childcare assistance out there that will help cover the cost of this. So there is a lot of things that are made available. I think one of the issues is so many people don't know they exist.
And some people, because now I have to be the devil's advocate, it's a catch-22. If you're a single parent and you have a child and you get assistance to get a second job, now they have to count that second job as income, so you lose your benefits.
Yeah, that's where our system's broken.
Yeah, so it's like a catch-22.
Yeah.
Another reason is food waste, which Ashley has been telling us a little bit about.
Yep.
Up to 40% of food grown in some countries is spoilage. And what they mean by spoilage is any imperfection.
Like just because it's not pretty, not that it's not edible or something wrong
it's not
with it.
rotten. It's not spoiled. Sometimes it's just
Not
perfect. Yeah. And they consider that like spoilage. And so that goes in the trash.
Mm-hmm.
Up to 40%. Sometimes it's due to, lack of proper storage or restaurants just throwing food out at the end of the day because it wasn't consumed.
Mm-hmm.
Our infrastructure plays a big part into why hunger exists. Just transporting food to areas of the country where there are shortages. We faced this last year.
Mm-hmm.
So lack of transportation forces people to shop at places that sell mostly packaged and prepared foods, which we all know are processed
Mm-hmm.
and have higher calories but low nutritional value.
Mm-hmm.
Unstable markets, fluctuations, they push food prices up, and it creates additional hardships for those who are already struggling with hunger.
Right. And that doesn't only happen in a pandemic. That can happen with natural disasters as well.
Like Hurricane Katrina
Mm-hmm.
and, some of the other natural disasters that we've had. I remember that hurricane that hit Puerto Rico a couple of years ago.
Right. I mean, it really devastates the
So-
entire community.
And their infrastructure was very difficult to receive the help and the supplies that were there on the island.
Mm-hmm.
But because the roads and some things had no longer existed from that hurricane, it made the ability to get it out to the people a lot more difficult.
Right.
Climate change, believe it or not, climate change is damaging food and water security in significant ways. I know people turn on the TV and it's also political, but climate change does make a difference. It makes a difference to your local farmer. Nutritional quality. So it's called hidden hunger.
I think this is a huge issue that is not talked about.
This is the one that I told you I thought of, like I knew about, but I really didn't
Mm-hmm.
think much about it
Mm-hmm.
until doing this. And it's hidden hunger, as it has more to do with the quality of food than the quantity. Certain nutrients lead to a healthy life. We know this. And when we don't consume sufficient amounts, people become sick and even die. There are deficiencies,
Yes.
vitamin deficiencies, along with other things that happen. And people will become frail, sick, and die. Infants and young children, especially during the 1,000-day window between pregnancy and them being 2 years of age, are the most vulnerable to the harmful effects of hidden hunger.
Well, your body's growing at a substantial.
It needs
Right,
the
at that time.
nutrition and protein and nourishment in order to develop appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
And discrimination, I've already talked about it a little bit with those who have served their time in the prison system or the jail system, and they're discriminated against.
Mm-hmm.
There's systemic discrimination that's woven into society. It's always been there. It's there today. I think there's more light on it today,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not enough. People are discriminated by, multiple areas, whether it's race, religion, their ethnicity, the language that they speak, the way that they look. Like, people are discriminated for gender, non-gender, both gender. You know what I mean? It just goes on and on and on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We do want to talk a little bit about assistance programs because we don't want anybody to be hungry. I know that there is what they call a PEBT or a pandemic EBT, which provides money, a resource to families that have lost access to the free or the reduced lunch prices. I know that some of the surrounding schools, they are giving out free meals and they are also providing the EBT cards.
Correct.
So there's a lot of extra help right now that's out there to provide food to the families for children. So you just have to go get it. There are the SNAP benefits, and that's a monetary supplement that is given to you. There's a lot of that goes into it, but you have to apply for it, and you get so much money per month. It's supposed to be it's supposed to be a supplement to your food budget. It's not supposed to be
the source of.
Yeah. There are WIC programs that's for women, infants,
children.
Women, infants, and children.
Up until the age of 5 years old.
Right. And that provides you specific foods that are free.
Correct. Like eggs, milk, cheese, some cereals.
Formula, I believe.
Correct.
And then there's local food banks. And there are plenty of places that you have to apply for, and there are plenty of places that you don't. And I think that it's important to also realize that if you apply and you get assistance for food, you probably could get housing assistance,
medical
childcare,
assistance,
medications, fuel assistance, or help with your electric bill. So it's not just if you get help paying the light bill, well, then that might be enough extra money to supplement with food. The food with your EBT or SNAP benefits that you could then provide good foods. And there are a lot of things that you can look at online if you have a computer and have internet, or if you go to your local library, that you can find resources and recipes to how to cook foods that can be inexpensive and nutritionally dense. Like beans are really good. They have great fiber. They offer protein. They're filling.
Honey, I grew up on beans and rice, so you ain't saying nothing I don't already know.
That's just kind of one of those things that, may not be able to have.
You're not going to be eating filet mignon and lobster tails.
But, you can maybe do a great chicken, beans, and rice dish.
Absolutely.
And it's filling and nutritious.
Absolutely.
Throw some vegetables with it, and then it's a great, well-rounded meal. It's not fancy, but it's filling and nutritious.
Tastes good.
So that's one of those things that you have to kind of use those resources that are there and available to you.
Yes. And I know you mentioned this a little bit before. Most of these programs, they are state or federally funded. And I think we just need to accept the fact that it's okay to ask for help, and humility and being humble is okay. You can apply for all of these services at once.
Yes.
The worst thing you're going to hear is that you don't qualify.
Right.
So don't let your pride get in the way of being able to provide for your family.
Right. Well, to me, if you're doing that, then I don't know what to tell you. If you're so prideful that you won't go apply to see if you can get help with food to feed your kids, and you're just letting them go hungry, I don't have words for you.
I totally understand. And I also understand because I've just been raised, I'm a military brat, so I've seen a lot of things, lived with amongst a lot of people, and have experienced a lot of different cultures. And sometimes it is a pride thing. It's inbred. But I think in 2021, there needs to be a lot less of that pride and a lot more humility. And I can assure you the world will be a better place. So if you're wondering how you can become involved, emergency food providers such as your food banks, food pantries, and your soup kitchens are able to purchase and acquire food in bulk, meaning that $1 donated can go many times further than the $1 that you spent on those canned foods or those unperishable items that you're donating to the pantry. Now, don't get me wrong, they'll accept both.
Yes.
But I think it's also important to realize that they're tax exempt. They have special, benefits sometimes when they buy in bulk. So $1 does go a lot farther than a can. We also have to advocate for government policy changes that help feed hungry people, especially as Congress keeps considering deep cuts into these programs such as SNAP and EBT and Medicaid. We have to advocate for not just ourselves, but for your neighbor as well.
Mm-hmm.
Food pantries and soup kitchens, they need dedicated volunteers all year round, not just during the holiday season like Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's. Make it a new tradition, to volunteer on a different day other than Christmas or Thanksgiving. Volunteer on the 4th of July or volunteer on Easter. The whole point is to just volunteer. And don't think small-minded about it. Think about it. These places are running off of volunteers. So if you have a specialized skill set, maybe you're an accountant, maybe you have, IT skills and abilities, or you know how to work social media really well, or you're a graphic designer, I guarantee that any of these places would be more than happy to have you volunteer and help them out.
Absolutely.
And, fight for immigration reform. A third of undocumented immigrants live in poverty.
I'm going to tell you, no matter what your political beliefs are, I feel like if you're a good person, if a kid comes up to you and asks you for food, you're not going to ask them if they're a citizen of the United States.
I definitely wouldn't.
I mean, if you think about it that way, it may kind of
sit differently.
Yeah, sit a little bit differently. But I do think that there are so many different programs that are out there. It wasn't this year, but last year I remember seeing on the news, and Rosa will tell you how rare it is that I watch the news.
Never, ever.
But when I was watching it, they literally said, we do not need any more volunteers. It was just an influx of volunteers at Christmas and Thanksgiving. And that if you want to give, they just need that money because they need it to buy like perishable food things, milks and things like that, and meats for the people that were coming. And they couldn't. They had all the people in the world to help them sort and get things where they needed to go, but they didn't have enough money to purchase the stuff to put those people to work.
Absolutely.
So that's why it really does. They needed a good mix of everything. And some people don't have the time to spend volunteering, and that's okay. Then give a few dollars. And if you don't believe in Feeding America, you don't like that organization, I guarantee you there's another one out there.
There's they work with local you can go onto their website and find a local food bank.
Yes.
If that's, how passionate you feel about helping your local food bank.
Yes.
But we chose Feeding America because of that. Because they are literally in almost every single city.
Yeah, there are thousands of them.
Absolutely.
So what we want to do with Feeding America as a nonprofit organization, which is what we liked, is that we at the Nursing Post podcast have decided to help fundraise and volunteer for them. They have a network of 200 food banks and 60,000 food pantries with the meal programs in every county in the United States, including Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. They have various low or no contact options available in many areas. They have senior only hours. They have drive-through pantries. They are trying to expand to home delivery for those who are very much in a hard way. I had said on a previous podcast when I volunteered a few weeks ago, it was mainly senior citizens who came through there.
Well, remember, at that point, they may not be able to cook for themselves anymore.
Right.
And they need assistance.
Right. So what we hope is that you can visit us at the nursingpostpodcast.com/feeding-America. We'll link that to make a small donation. For every $1 donated, it helps provide 10 meals. And again, like Rosa had said earlier, I know you're like, what? How do you get 10 meals out of $1? I can never do it. But they are working with other companies to make that happen. So you can either buy 2 cans of vegetables for $1. Like Walmart has it for 50 cents a can where I live.
Mm-hmm.
So you can buy 2 cans of vegetables, or you can take that same dollar and donate it
And make an
and
actual
make
meal.
10 meals.
Absolutely.
So just, you can think about that. Some people hate giving money for whatever reason, then buy the 2 cans. I'd rather
feed people,
feed
period.
people in some way than not at all. So that is what we are hoping and praying for. If you're unable to do that because you don't have the money yourself to spare, then you can actually just volunteer your time, and you can go to feedingamerica.org/take-action/volunteer. Again, we will link all of this on our website.
Absolutely. I think we could all go one day without a $5 latte and donate to Feeding America.
Absolutely.
As always, we will link our references to our website, www.thenursingpostpodcast.com, along with those for donations for Feeding America and for volunteering with Feeding America. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform and share your thoughts and comments. Thanks for listening to The Nursing Post.